Bath Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David, starting with the 144,000 and the rest of the men, women, and children out of the 12 tribes whom Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai will ultimately have mercy upon in these last days. I'm your brother Matazabath from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Melbourne, Australia. Back again with another news and prophecy dealing with the MOTB. And as you can see here, this is another step forward that they are pushing, okay, that is going to lead them into their enterprise known as the NWO. And to be a part of that enterprise, you will indeed have to register yourself within this digital system, which is going to be led by the microchip, which is the mark of the beast. Now, this is from the People's Voice.tv, article that reads, Alex Karp demands U.S. taxpayers bankroll Palantir to build American digital ID surveillance grid. All right, so what I want to do is I kind of want to just go into this article because basically what they are going to explain through his statement is the fact that this has not only been a long time coming, but they are mirroring this same system that is already being implemented in China and also India. OK, and there are also other countries within the continent of Africa, smaller countries, I may add, that have taken part as well in testing this technology. And see, this is why we get on these other camps out here, because a lot of these other camps, they're bullshitting around. They're not reporting these things to keep the sheep in a loophole to what this devil is about to do. OK, and one thing about we here at Great Millstone, beginning with the apostles, the bishops, and elders on down, is that we don't leave no stone unturned. We're going to give you the 100% truth as we take the things that are going on across the four winds of the planet Earth, and we cross-reference it to the prophecy so that you can understand the times that you're in. So with that being said, let's get into this article. This reads as of December 9th, 2025, and it says, in a stunning moment caught on camera, Palantir CEO Alex Karp openly demanded American taxpayers bankroll a nationwide digital ID system, a proposal that will push the U.S. over the edge and into a Chinese-style social monitoring regime. Right? Now, keep in mind, I've done a video a couple of weeks ago where I showcase Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum Committee panel, and how through an interview that he took part of, he specifically stated that China was the actual measuring stick in terms of, from a global standpoint, on where every nation and country should take part in the system that they have created in terms of the digital ID, which is known as their social credit score system. OK, so what you people need to understand, OK, is the fact that just because you see on the news China's raging war, they're trying to take over Taiwan, they're going back and forth with America. All right, they're joining hands with Russia, all this, that, and the third. Behind closed doors, really, they are all on one accord when it comes to the one world government. OK, and them establishing this system. You see, this is why the scriptures tells us in the Apocrypha, woe be unto Asia, OK, because they have taken on the likeness of Babylon the Great. OK, and what does it mean by they taking on the likeness of Babylon the Great? Well, Babylon the Great for the elites is the center of how it's going to rule over the planet Earth. So the banking elites, that's what they believe. OK, but see, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai has other plans. These nations really believe. This is why it tells you in Psalms, the 2nd chapter, OK, why do the heathen rage and imagine a vain thing? OK, a lot of people are forgetting, especially you Israelites, you're forgetting who our enemies are at the end of the day. All right. This is why it's important to stick with prophecy. So it goes on to say the comments resurfaced this week after a clip circulated by More Perfect Union showed Karp arguing that a federally supported digital ID grid would help the US stay competitive in the age of AI. All right. It says what he didn't say, but what Palantir's history makes impossible to ignore, is that such a system will place one of the world's most powerful surveillance contractors at its center. And that's really what it's all about. See, many Americans, aka Babylonians, are sleeping on the fact that when it comes to this system, nobody is asking the question who is going to control all of the data that is being collected and who is going to be the overseers of that data that is being collected. See, they always tell you that this is for the good of the people. This is going to speed up the process for paperwork and your things are going to be concealed. Nobody's going to be able to tamper with your ID, but they're not telling you who's going to control every sense of the word when it comes to the data being collected and how they're going to control that. Because part of this social credit score system is when they collect all of the data, right, and they allow for artificial intelligence to pretty much rule over that data, AI can become very dangerous because based upon the data that it collects upon your every goings within life, it pretty much can determine, okay, you know what, based upon this, that, and a third, you don't need to be doing this. You don't need to be doing that. We're going to strip this from you. You're eating way too much of this. That's pretty much what the social credit score system is all about. It's based upon your credit score and your obedience to the government. Okay, the things that you say in public. Okay, abiding by the laws as a good Samaritan citizen and whatnot, things of that nature. So all of this is coming to pass, as the scripture says. Okay, that they seek it. They counsel runs deep. Okay, because see, they meet behind closed doors to bring these things to the forefront. Okay. And then as it tells us in Isaiah, the 10th chapter, okay, they write grievousness that they have prescribed. Okay, because they've already pre-planned on how this is going to run. Right. So it continues to say, and Karp has never hidden his philosophy. Quote, I don't think in win or loss. I think in denomination. Bad times are very good for Palantir. End quote. In other words, what he's saying, because this is can be, in the form of an idiom. There's a saying that Klaus Schwab, or really his protege, which is Yuval Noah Harari, he said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Okay, that's the same thing as saying bad times are very good for Palantir. Why? Because Palantir as a company can capitalize off those bad times. Okay, when you create a crisis, you capitalize off that crisis. You don't let it go to waste. You collect the data. Okay, problem, reaction, solution. Let's create the problem. Let's collect the data. Okay, and then let's give the solution to that problem because we already saw the chaos. That's essentially what Palantir is doing. This is why they went and set up back around late October, early November, when they cut off the benefits. You see? And then once they came back around, what did Trump do? He introduced a $2,000 tariff to help out people that also go to help out with their funding. OK, you have certain states over in the East Coast that have instituted what's called a GBI system, which is sort of like a UBI system. Basically, GBI stands for General Basic Income. Right. Again, problem, reaction, solution. And now these top politicians, they're trying to come out of the woodwork and say, well, we're going to set this up. No, because we got to keep up with the age of infrastructure and dealing with technology. And so this would be a very good opportunity to help our people by instituting what's called a general basic income, which is going to lead to a universal income system. And people are not catching on to these things, man. You see? Going on, it says surveillance capitalism hasn't spoken this bluntly since Bill Gates warned that anyone who refuses to comply will be excluded from society. And he said that. Okay? Remember, in a video done by Aaron Russo, when he had the interview with Alex Jones, he said, look, the overall goal of the elites is for everybody to be microchipped. And if you do not conform, they can do whatever they want to do and whenever they want to do it. They can turn off your money. They can turn off access to you going places. Okay, we see the situation that's going on with Babylon the Great for travel documents now for certain countries, including Australia, the UK, France. If you decide to travel to the US, you have to now provide them 5 years of all your social media accounts and whatnot. What does that have to do with traveling in? Okay, see, the dragon is speaking. Okay, draconian measures are starting to creep in these last days, right? So it says, and this is from X, formerly known as Twitter. I'll just read the post. It says, a former Palantir employee is sounding the alarm. Peter Thiel's company rose to prominence working with military, law enforcement, and ICE. They capitalize on fear and unrest to make money. Now they want you to pay them to build the government's central operating system. And we've been telling you this. We've been telling you this. This is part of the New World Order. Get ready, because we are here. From CIA seed money to national operating system. It says Palantir was born from the ashes of the DARPA Total Information Awareness, TIA program. And in an initiative so controversial, it was publicly shut down in '03 after people realized it aimed to predict citizens' behavior by pulling mass data from every corner of their lives. It says the shutdown was cosmetic. The CIA's venture arm and QTEL immediately backed a young Peter Thiel's startup, Palantir, giving it access to analysis and infrastructure. The TIA dream simply moved from government to private hands. The privatized Panopticon was born. Today, Palantir's flagship software, Gotham, underpins counterterrorism, predictive policing, immigration enforcement, and domestic surveillance across the West. And Karp himself admits the company thrives in crisis because crisis expands the market for control. You see that? Problem, reaction, solution. As Marshall McLuhan warned, we march backwards in the future. America is sleepwalking into a surveillance architecture built in secret 2 decades ago. Right? So then they give you the perfect storm. Ellison, Thiel, and Musk in the race to digitize the human being. It says Karp's comments arrive just as America's most powerful technocrats unveil their vision for the country's future. Larry Ellison, long obsessed with biometric identification, Ellison once offered the government a national ID system for free. Recently, he bragged, citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything. This is what you call a social credit score system. Because the moment you do anything that goes against the laws of the land that is being watched in surveillance, you can be penalized for your behavior. And so they're going to institute what's called digital tokens, okay, where your data will be stored, your money will be in a form of a universal basic income. So whatever it is that you do that the government don't like, each month when you receive your income, they can easily take out deductions that's going to cost you. Right? I'll give you an example. Imagine you driving down the street and you do something where you break the law on the road, and you're looking for the police officer that's going to come or whatever the case may be, guess what? It's going to get to a point where they don't need to send the police after you for little crimes or breaking the law, because it's going to be, the fine is going to be automatically deducted from your universal basic income. Once the facial recognition camera picks you up, okay, it'll have all of your data already stored. It'll know where to send the fine. It can deduct the money right from your bank account. I mean, you talk about total control, right? Only to turn around to wake up and you want to go to your favorite, Starbucks, restaurant, or you want to go to the movies, or you want to go to your favorite gym. Once you go to swipe your hand, access denied. This is what Esau, the scriptures talk about it, man. It calls him cunning and crafty, right? Moving forward, it says Oracle now markets biometric ID as the key to security, while Ellison pushes for AI-driven medical passports, personalized mRNA treatments, and a globally networked health data regime. You see? Now, Peter Thiel, okay, his worldview is clear. It says America isn't a democracy. It's ruled by unelected technocrats. And Palantir is his masterpiece, a data refinery capable of identifying, sorting, ranking, and predicting human behavior. They showed you this in a movie, Minority Report, with Tom Cruise. Predictive behavior. You also have movies like Deja Vu with Denzel Washington, the technology that they showed you that the government have to go back using the cameras and time lapse. It's almost like a time machine, but they have that. So imagine AI and what it can really do. It says, and he's placing his people everywhere. David Sachs, Jim O'Neill, Ken Howery, Trey Stevens, the PayPal mafia metastasized into government. Then you have Elon Musk. It says Musk's Starship satellites already provide military-grade global surveillance, while his influence over the U.S. digital infrastructure grows with no democratic oversight. And together, these men represent what author Catherine Austin Fitts, who I always go into, Catherine Austin Fitts, okay, who to me is one of the main whistleblowers, because she's worked under the Secretary of the U.S. and basically she has a lot of intel. So she's sort of like a whistleblower in a sense. And she calls it Mr. Global, the merger of big tech, big defense, and big finance into a single borderless global governance layer, which ultimately goes into the New World Order. Now it says the digital ID, the missing keystone of the control grid. Why is Palantir pushing so hard now? Because digital ID is the master key, right? And essentially is going to be tied in with the microchip. It says tokenized finance, biometric borders, predictive policing, AI-driven social scoring, medical surveillance, smart cities, and the Internet of Bodies are required, a unified government-backed identity layer. China achieved this with the social credit score system. You see that? It says CARP sees an opportunity to do the same, but privatized and funded by the American taxpayer. A senior U.S. official once admitted that if TIA has survived, it will look exactly like today's Palantir ecosystem. This is not innovation. It is the reboot of a failed globalist authoritarian project, right? And only this time, Yahweh Bashim Shah is allowing it, okay, for the simple fact to pretty much destroy Esau. Because according to the book of Job, he's only going to allow for him to get so far. As the scripture says, just when he is about to fill his belly, okay, Yahweh is going to rain upon him that iron weapon. It says pre-crime from Minority Report to federal infrastructure. You see, Minority Report. I just mentioned that movie. It says Palantir software is already used to track political dissidents, score individuals' risk levels, forecast crime before it happens, map social networks and associations. Trump previously legalized certain forms of pre-crime analytics under AG Bill Barr. Now, with Palantir executives embedded inside apartments, a nationwide rollout appears closer than ever. Israel's use of AI kills list programs like Lavender has shown how quickly these tools jump from data analytics to lethal decision making. And CARP dismissed concerns, saying only my bias is to defer to Israel. You see that? Showing you what? Pretty much the mini hats, okay, which is the top upper echelon of the elite, okay, which is Amalek, which is the same nation of people that Yahweh said he shall have war from generation to generation. You see, they're the ones that are at the forefront of what they are trying to establish. Remember, Esau wants the birthright back. Okay, this is why the scripture says that they heapeth unto themselves all people. They want to control every single entity here on the planet Earth. It says, Israel's use of AI kill list programs like Lavender has shown how quickly these tools jump from data analytics to lethal decision making. CARP dismissed concerns, saying only my bias is to defer to Israel. What happens when that bias enters our justice system? Newsflash is already entering the justice system. Okay. Then you have the tokenized human turning society into a digital concentration grid. Financial giants like BlackRock are pouring billions into AI-driven asset tokenization, land, forest, water, even carbon emissions. Every natural system is being converted into a tradable digital instrument. All right, because what the scriptures tells you. Let's get a precept if we can. All right, I believe it's Ecclesiasticus 39 and verse 26 and 27. It says, the principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing. All right. But it says all these things are for good to the godly. So to sinners, they are turned into evil. Okay. And what this devil's going to do is he's going to use the basic necessities of a man's everyday life, which is outlined here in verse 26. And he's going to turn it to evil by controlling the resources and stating that you will not be able to take part in those resources if you're not registered within this digital grid. You see, it says the next logical step is tokenizing the individual. This is where digital ID merges with CBDCs, which stands for central banking digital currency, medical passports, behavioral monitoring, algorithmic governance, automated penalties, and rewards. You see that? They literally want to be like the Most High. Okay. Just like when Yahweh told Cain in the garden, you know, because let me get that. What did he tell Cain when Cain gave the incorrect sacrifice? Okay. Genesis 4 and 5. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And Yahweh said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. All right. So 2 parts to this. One is, remember, the scripture says we compare spiritual things with spiritualness. That's 1 Corinthians, the 2nd chapter. So notice when Yahweh had that discussion with Cain about his incorrect sacrifice that's brought unto him, Esau is going to do the same thing in terms of using his digital ID grid of a system. If you give the wrong sacrifice in terms of doing the wrong thing that the government doesn't like, okay, then Esau is going to come with, as it says here in the article, all right, automated penalties and rewards. If you do it right, if you do what's right in their eyes, you're going to be rewarded. Okay, they may give you extra bonus in your digital tokens, your digital money that you receive, or whatever the case may be. They may allow for you to eat an extra steak for the week, because remember, they also are going to include what's called your carbon footprint. But if you do what's not well, just like Yahweh told Cain, sin lieth at the door. Now, in this case, if you don't do well against Esau in the system, you're going to be absolutely cut off. You're going to lose your digital money. They're going to take your money out there. You're not going to have access to your favorite resources, right? But then on the flip side to this, really what this is going into when he was dealing with Cain, all right, because if you can receive it, the same spirit that's in Cain was in Esau, Edom, all right? But that's a different topic for a different time. But the point here is when he told him that if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. In other words, he was setting the stage, letting Cain know that, look, you got to overcome this because, unto you shall be, it says, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. All right. So this began the process of you going to have to fight, okay, being in the flesh. And if you don't rule over yourself, okay, as it says, sin lieth at the door. You see what I'm saying? And we're gonna have to do the same thing. That's why the scripture says in Revelation, the 3rd chapter, that he that keepeth my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation. You're gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to fight the flesh to not take that chip and to be integrated in this man's system. Okay, or else you're going to be destroyed according to Revelation, the 14th chapter. All right. So it says the end game, a programmable social contract where dissent becomes economically impossible. Or as Bill Gates put it, people who refuse to submit must be excluded from society. And that goes hand in hand with Revelation chapter 13, verse 15. It says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, which represents this current system, that the image of the beast should both speak and is speaking now, right? And cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Because when you go into this word killed in the Greek, let's go to it real quick.
Strong's G 615, aparktino.
So it says to kill in any way, whatever, to destroy, to allow to perish, right? We understand that a lot of brothers who are in the truth, they're going to be martyrs for the truth. The scripture says that, some are going to be beheaded for this truth. So we understand that part. You're going to be physically taken out if you don't take the chip. But it also says, metaphorically speaking, to extinguish or abolish. It says to inflict mortal death or to be deprived of spiritual life and procure eternal misery in hell. In other words, the state of condition by everything being stripped from you. You're going to feel like you're living in hell because you do not have the things that can comfort you. Like right now, you're comforted because you have a full-time job. You got money coming in. You know what I'm saying? You're sitting comfortable, right? But it's going to come a time where we're going to lose all of that. This is why this is why Yahweh Shah said, let's get that. He that loveth this life, right? John 12 and let me see. There's one in Matthew I want to get. Yeah, that's the one I want. But John 12 and 25 is still a good one too. But let's get this in Matthew 10. I'll start at verse 38. It says, and he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. To take, when you read this in the AMP, let's put it in the AMP real quick. It says, and he who does not take his cross, expressing a willingness to endure whatever may come, and follow me, believing in me, confirming to my example in living, and if need be, suffering or perhaps dying because of faith in me, is not worthy of me. So this is why Apostle Gabar always says, most of you Israelites who are claiming to be in a faith, you have to really understand what you are a part of at the end of the day. Are you willing to lose it all, even if that means you are going to be unalive for this truth? Because this is the point that we're at. Verse 39, whoever finds his life in this world will eventually lose it through death. Because the scripture says in Revelation 14, all right, he that worships the beast or the image or receives his mark, okay, you're going to be utterly destroyed by fire and brimstone. So here it is, you thinking that you're winning because you accepted Esau's microchip into his digital concentration camp of a grid. Guess what? You still gonna be destroyed. It says, and whoever loses his life in this world for my sake will find it. That is life with me for all eternity. So guess what? If you stick it out and endure, okay, there's a chance that, if you are written in the book of life, Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah is going to compensate you by crowning you when it's all said and done. That's why he said in Revelation 2 and 10, okay, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer, for the devil shall cast some of you into prison. Be thou faithful unto death, right? And I will give you the crown of life. So even if you are put in a position where Esau strips you from everything in his new world order, okay, and even so much as if you have to be beheaded for this truth, it's not the end of the world. Death is not where it stops. This is why you have to get comfort in the scriptures of knowing these mysteries. You see? So if you find your life in this world by trusting in this world, trusting in the system, you're going to lose. But if you're willing to lose your life, as the scripture says, they loved not their lives unto death. Let's get that. Okay. Revelation 12 and 11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death. You see that? Me and the brother Yashar, we did a live last night going into the whole Zion Lex and Deacon Hakah situation. And one of the scriptures that Yashar brought up was pertaining to the book of 2nd Maccabees in the 7th chapter, dealing with the brethren, the 7 brethren. And one of them alluded to the fact, he said, look, it is good being put to death. All right, let's get that. All right. 2nd Maccabees 7 and 14. It says, so when he was ready to die, he said, thus, it is good being put to death by men, to look for hope from the Most High to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. So the key focus here is that this Israelite brother said, look, I'm cool with it. It's good because my faith and trust is in Yahweh. So whether I get put to death on this side, let it happen because I trust in I'm going to come back. I have faith that I'm going to be resurrected to come back. And this is sort of faith you got to have being in these times, knowing what's about to come. This is the sort of faith that Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah is looking for. And like Elder Yashawamba always says, you're going to have to step out on some unbelievable faith when this shit really goes down. Because we're going to see, like Elder Pastahar says time and time again, when shit pops off, we really going to see who's who in these times. So you can sit here and do as many lessons as you think you want to do. You can go live as much as you want, thinking you put in the work. But when it really comes down, like Elder Manatazaba always say, yeah, we in the flesh when it actually happens and you are involved. Don't worry about the apostles. Don't worry about the bishops. Don't worry about the elders. Don't worry about, the brothers around you. When you are involved, we're going to see where your faith really lies. We're going to see if you were really about this truth. because this is a part of working out your own salvation with fear and trembling. The next brother can't save you. You see what I'm saying? Let's just get back to this. All right. And then we're going to touch a little bit more on Bill Gates, but I just want to finish this off. It says, a sleepwalking nation at the edge of a globalist technocratic coup. The American public still thinks of tech as convenient gadgets and apps. Meanwhile, the world's most powerful companies are quietly building a post-constitutional governance system that includes borderless, unaccountable, algorithmic, real-time, financialized, predictive, self-expanding. This is not Big Brother. This is Big Brother privatized, optimized, and automated. And now Palantir wants you to pay for it. As McLuhan said, we look at the present through a rearview mirror. By the time we recognize what this system is, it will already be fully installed. And that's the point. Okay? This is why Yahweh Bashim Shai has sent forth his prophets to warn you. Okay? As the scripture says, let's get 2nd Esdras chapter 9. At verse 1, it says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Remember, Yahweh Shah said that I will be with you always until the very end. So you cannot tell me that the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Shah is not here on the planet Earth to warn you through the men whom he raised up to give testimony to. Let's get that. In Ecclesiasticus chapter 36 and verse 15, it says, give testimony unto those that thou hast possessed from the beginning, and raise up prophets that have been in thy name. You see that? Meaning the same men that were back then prophesying in the ancient world, guess what? They're back here again today and they're alive. But check this out, verse 16. It says, reward them that wait for thee, and let thy prophets be found faithful. Because with all this shit happening, we still got to stand on our post and wait on our power. Even if that means we have to be unalive for this truth, so be it. Because when you understand death, death is not the end of it. Because I'm going to keep it a buck. If you fear death, really that means that you really don't have faith in Yahweh Shah being resurrected from the dead. Really, that's what that's going into. Because if you really truly understand the resurrection of Yahweh Shai, okay, you should not really fear death. So you have to go back to 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 15. Let's get that real quick. Because if you tossing up between this and you really are unsure of yourself, this is what you need to do. 2 Corinthians 13 and 5, it says, examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Yahweh Shah Mashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. Because otherwise, if you don't believe, you are anti-Hamashiach. That's really what you are. The scripture says, he that believeth not in me is condemned already. So you can fake the funk all you want to, being around the brothers and this, that, and the third. But really, if you're not examining yourself, when you're not around the brotherhood, when the camera is not rolling, what are you really doing? Do you really understand what you are involved in? Because when this man pinpoints you and say, hey, you one of those Hebrew Israelites, you down with this? Okay, are you going to deny Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai? You see what I mean? Are you going to deny the testimony of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, which is the spirit of prophecy? Are you going to deny that? So we have to understand the times that we're in. Now, let's get to this. So I looked up on, I hate when it does that, Salakia. This is, all right, let's see if it'll go back. Okay, here it is. So I put into Google, Bill Gates alludes to, if you do not pretty much take part in the digital society, you're going to be excluded. Now it says Bill Gates has expressed that widespread digital inclusion via digital IDs and money systems is crucial for essential services like healthcare, education, finance, implying that not participating in a digital society could lead to exclusion from these opportunities, especially in developing nations. So this is where the crafty and cunningness comes into effect, because they're not forcing you. Just like what happened with 2020 and 2021 with the pandemic, when you had to take the serpent juice. They didn't force you, but they put you in a situation where they said, well, look, you can't be able to work unless you take it. Now, we're not forcing you. You can do what you want to do at the end of the day, but we're just saying you cannot work or you cannot travel, go here if you don't prove that you've taken the serpent juice. The same thing is going to happen, because that was a test go run to see how they can manipulate the people. So how much more when they institute the microchip, right? And they mandate and say, look, you're not going to be able to participate within society unless you take it. They don't have to force it, but they'll do it in a way where you have no choice but to take it. Okay, this is what we're trying to get you to understand, how this devil really plays these games. It says, while not a direct excluded ultimatum, his view is that digital access is a foundational requirement for modern societal and economic participation. Now, let's check out this little clip. I found this little clip.
I believe having the ability to save and transact is something that should be universal, and a lot of forms have adopted that goal. We won't be able to do that with traditional systems. That is, the cost of bank branches and paperwork is just too high. But fortunately, starting with countries like Kenya, and more recently with a robust system in places like India, we see that you can have digital financial inclusion. India is a great example. They did a lot of their own technology, which won't be possible for other countries. And so the role of the Gates Foundation as an advocate for those who don't have access today is to make sure there's technology and standards, including open source work that we're providing through the financial switch, which is called Mojaloop, and through the digital identity system, which is extremely valuable, not just for financial activities, but for health and voting and education, and that's called MOSIP.
So since there isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all solution, what is the role that you see the private sector playing in being able to collaborate with different governments to ensure that we move forward?
Well, once you have the digital money system, then there's all sorts of services and applications that can be built on top of that, whether it's helping with health or education or agriculture, giving people visibility into their financial status, giving them advice, should they take a loan, should they buy insurance, what makes sense. The phone becomes a connection for low cost interaction with those customers that doesn't require human activity that would be beyond the means of the people we're trying to get to who don't yet have these accounts. So the digital revolution, which of course was where I worked before moving full-time to the foundation, here we're trying to make sure that the developing countries have the benefit of the digital revolution, in some cases before it gets to even some of the rich countries who have legacy systems that people are so used to that the speed that they'll transition out of them won't be as fast as, say, China or India that didn't have that history. And so it's really learning what worked in China and India, and now making it easy for even smaller countries to do this, working with a lot of partners, including the World Bank, African Development Bank, many of them. So private sector will help these central banks create these systems, but moreover, the phone companies, the banks, and the entrepreneurs will build applications that use these financial capabilities.
You see, that's what it comes down to. And notice they kept saying China is pretty much in a roundabout way the blueprint. All right. And this is why the scripture says, let's get that 2 Esdras 15. All right. In verse 46. Because see, China think that they gonna come up on a level, and you sadly mistaken. But this is 2 Esdras 15 and 46. It says, "And thou, Asia, that are partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person." Okay, because they're mirroring this beast system. You see, they are pretty much in the pockets of the top elites, which are Edomites. It says, "Woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee." You see? So, China, they're just as guilty. Okay. And they also have drunken the wine of Babylon, which goes into their philosophies. It says, "Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith thy power, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death." So China, you're going to be destroyed. Because you're following right after the works and inventions. And this is why we try to tell y'all, man, y'all thinking like, well, we're siding with Russia. See, Russia's going up against the NWO and China is no, they're all in bed in cahoots with one another, man. Psalms 83 tells you that they have made a tumult, okay, to come against thy hidden ones. Who are the hidden ones? The Israelites, beginning with you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay. They have formed an alliance to come against you. And so through the works of these inventions, through their software technology, their artificial intelligence, the CBDC system, the social credit score system, that is all the blueprint for the whole entire globe. You see, that's why it says at the beginning of the chapter, when you go back up, or actually over the next chapter, it says, 2 Esdras 16 and 1, "Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria," which is another names for America, because America spiritually is Egypt, Syria all over again. Nineveh, okay, is the daughter of Babylon. But notice it says Asia, because the Asian countries are taking part in this also. And like I said, the article, Palantir referenced China system. Bill Gates, you heard it in his video, they're mirroring off of China. And he also mentioned India, okay, which is Elam. It says, "Gird up yourselves with cloths of sack and hair, bewail your children, and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand." See, Yahweh Bashem El Shai, he ain't finna let this ride, man. These nations really think they have it in the bag, but see, they're going to be in a rude awakening. The scripture says, let's get that in Psalms 21. All right. Verse 11. It says, "For they intended evil against thee. They imagine a mischievous device which they are not able to perform." They really think that they finna get away with this shit. Yahweh Bashem El Shai got their ass in a trick bag. It's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? So this is where we're at, man. And as the scripture says in Habakkuk 2, and we'll close it off here. In verse 2 and 3, it says, "And Yahweh answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it." Okay, Revelation 1 and 3 says, "Blessed is he that readeth." Okay, for verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry." Okay, so everything we've been saying, dealing with biblical prophecy, is not going to tarry, man. at all. 100%. You can best believe that. So I'm going to end it there. I pray that this lesson was edifying, and I want to give all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah HaKodash, Shabbat, Shalom.